Well, hello there. I am a man who needs no introduction because I haven't got much interesting to say about myself, except I spend too much money on useless things. And that's about it. This is a tutorial to make your own Spider-Verse art piece. Not like this. This is something else I'm just zooming in and zooming out on for no apparent reason. But the results will be well worth it, though it might take some time. In between each step, I've put short videos of little art pieces just to fill the gap. I'm not sure if I'll be making other videos in the future, but if you'd like me to, please subscribe and hit the like button and follow me on Instagram using the link below. Now, let us begin. Now, to get started off with what you need. Some of these items, you won't need them, but they will make it life a lot easier for you in the long run. Okay? So, what you might use is an Apple Pencil. Now, they're very expensive. If you don't have one, don't worry. You can get by without it, but it's very helpful but very expensive. Although it does help out a lot with art, and if you're planning to start a business using Procreate or doing it professionally, I'd recommend saving your money for a while and getting one. But what you will need for this is Procreate. Now, it's a £10 app, but you can do letters, business things, and all sorts with it. So your mum will definitely let you get it because it is that kind of buy one time, you don't need to buy it ever. You can even use oil paints on this thing. It cuts a lot of price out of being an artist. Another thing you will need is a Spider-Man action figure. You can do it freestyle, but using an action figure makes it both a lot quicker and a lot cooler because you can make a cool art piece out of your own toy, which is very fun. And not like this, but this is not what we're going to be doing. But what we're going to be doing is something more like this. Pretty awesome. Now, each result will be different, so it won't look exactly like this. This is another backdrop I made for my freestyle one I'm going to be doing sometime. It's not unfinished, that one, of course. Then there's that one. There's all sorts of different styles and ways you can do your art piece. So don't worry if things don't seem to go right. There's always ways to correct them on the way down. To get started, you'll need to go onto Procreate, and making a new picture is really simple. You just click on this plus sign right here, plus. And you've got all these different options. Don't be overwhelmed. I just tend to go quick and simple with A4. Because if you're ever going to print out the photo, that's most likely going to be a size you're going to print in. So nice, easy and simple. And then you've got your page. Here you have your layers. You put add plus to add a layer, the little tick to make it disappear, the little box to make it reappear. You'll see why that's important later. But just for now, these are overall basics. You've got touch, which basically means you're not using a pen, but you're using your finger, which most of you likely will be. You've got the rubber, with just as many options as the paintbrush, which is great when you're trying to do art. Then you've got the colours, which I'll show you a bit more about in time. This arrow, say I have had this square, this arrow moves around your picture. If you ever wanted to focus or centralize your character or picture, you've got distort, which distorts it. There is a good shortcut with Procreate for making photos with figurines. Now, we're not using the figurine yet, but just for when we do get to that, here's how you do it. So you take a picture of your figurine. I've already taken it, and then we go on to add and insert a photo. You'll see you've got all these options, and here is an example. Now, as you can see, the background's already gone. Now, this doesn't do it automatically, but what you have to do for this is go into photos and hold down the picture. You have to hold down on the picture, the figure, and it should create an outline. Now, you have to use an Apple device for this, unfortunately. And then it will single it out, and you click on copy. And if you're using the same device, click on copy, add, and paste. Now, I haven't got anything to paste, but you click on paste, and it'll ask if you want to paste image. You paste it, and then you'll have just the outline, which cuts a lot of time out of doing the artwork. So just take a picture of your Spider-Man in a cool pose, and then it's ready for when we get to that step. Before getting started on the portal, the figure, all of that, we need to first do the background, of course. It's the most boring part, but it makes the picture look 1,000 times better. For this, we start with the dark blue, and you'll see why once it's completed. But to get rid of this layer, without rubbing it out, because you want to save it for later, obviously, just click on the arrow, disappears, and add new layer. For each detail, as much as I can, I add a new layer, even for the webs, because it just gives it that depth it needs, and also helps out the artwork a lot. If you don't like one thing in the picture, you can get rid of that thing without it affecting other parts of the picture, if it's on a separate layer. So it helps out a lot. So we're just going to begin covering this whole thing. After making this video, I forgot to say something very, very important. And that is colour. Some of the basics. Now, you access the colour by clicking on this circle. It's very complicated, but let me just simplify it out for you. You move this dial here to go to the different colours of the rainbow. Move this one to add, make it pale, make it vivid. This is darkness and brightness. And of course, you can shift between the different colours here, getting some nice combinations. This is what I mainly use, but you can use circle, where it's the same thing, but in a different format. Classics, which is a bit of a mixture of both options. You've got harmony, which is again just another form, whichever one works for you, but I tend to use this one because it's quickest, easiest, and simple. This bar along the bottom is colours you want to keep using. Now I tend to overfill this one, overfill it quite a lot. So I'm just going to delete that and add a new colour palette. This just lets you add a colour. Say I wanted to keep this red. You add it by tapping on a different one, and say I wanted to keep a light blue. I can tap on the blue and make it that colour, and then the colour is saved for you. Okay? But if you've lost the colour, and you want to regain it, say I wanted to draw with this red. You hold the finger down on the red, lift it off, and now I've got that colour. Nice and simple. Another thing you need to remember, I know there's a lot to remember, but you'll get the hang of it with time, are these bars. Now, whatever paintbrush you're using, it will shrink and enlargen it, depending on what you want. Just move the bar up to go bigger, move the bar down to go smaller, and this is intensity. So say you wanted to make it faded or behind something, say you wanted your painting to be behind a piece of glass in your photo for some reason, you could fade it into the background, like the Invisible Woman, by just making it more intense, making it less intense. You get the gist. And that is the basics of it. Now, these are my layers. Now, for this picture. I'm not showing you how to do this picture, but as you can see, there's lots of ones, but I've placed them specifically. Say, because in this picture, there's loads of black, and this is all hidden behind the black. Now, for this, I need to move this black layer above all the other colours. When it's above it, all the other colours are put underneath it. Say, for example, I got rid of that. See? Everything else is revealed. Add it, take it away. Add it, take it away. You get the gist. And that's why, when you're doing them, colours you want to stay above the others, you can move by holding it down and dragging it. Like that. And this way, get rid of this ad. And this way, you can do your art in many different ways, and it opens a whole door of opportunities for you to do. What you need to remember, something to speed up your webs and make them look a lot more neat, is that whenever you're doing them, you can draw a line, say it's a squiggly line like that, and hold it down. Just hold it down for like 3 seconds or even a second, and it will straighten. And that makes it look a lot more professional and a lot neater and a lot more easier. See, remember what I said about Procreate? It really helps out when you want to make some art. Now, what you may realize is it looks a little boring, a little dull. But this is where the layers come in very handy. So you go into your layer that has your webs. So then you click on that, hold it down, and drag it to the side. And you'll see duplicate. Now you want to click that, duplicate. Now something I like to do is shrink it. You can do this as many times as you want, and then you've got hundreds of more layers. If you run out of layer space, don't worry about it. You can always just fuse the layers. Again, I'll show you later. Just spot them around however way you want. If there's any sharp edges you don't like, say for example, on the first one, you got this sharp edge here, and it just sort of disappears. I don't like that. So what I do is I go into soft airbrush on the rubber. So the great thing about Procreate is the rubbers have as much paintbrush options as the paintbrushes, which is slightly confusing, but very helpful. So I go into soft airbrush and make it big as I can, and then just softly rub out the end, so it just sort of fades into the background and is much less sharp. Like that. Makes it very helpful. Now we can do that with the extra layers in a bit, but I'll show you how to do those later. Now, again, if you want to change the shape, you can just flip it. And for this, you can warp it even. Make it go all over the place, make it weird and warpy, I guess. Now there's several different ones, several different ways you can make it. So whatever you want. And then you'll have a cool little picture in the background. You can fuse them together by pinching all the layers and putting them together. And then you can just duplicate all that and make loads more. There we are. So that'll be enough for me. Now, still doesn't look super spectacular. One extra thing I do before we get into another way to do the webs is duplicate that layer. Then add a shiny blue. So just a pale blue to all of it. See? Pale blue. Remember, since you duplicated the layer, it's separate from that one. Now, here's a little trick. So, go onto the layer that's blue. That you dragged the blue onto the pattern. Okay? Then click on the arrow. And just move it a bit. Just move it a bit. Like that. Or like that. So just a bit underneath, and that's got a very cool little 3D effect. There. Now, how do we enhance this a bit? Well, again, it's whatever you want, really. So, explore the paintbrushes. Get a feel for them. Click on them like that. We've got all these different options of different webs you can do. But one way I like to add a background to it is to go on Abstract. On this paintbrush here called Spicule, I think. I probably spelled that wrong. Please forgive me. And all I do is make it a bit bigger, however I want, and go on underneath it. See, now it's starting to grow. I get some web patterns in between them, in between the larger ones that look like that kind of just fade into the background. And of course, you can just draw little web patterns with these as well. They'll look cooler in a second. There's always a trick. Remember, if you're not happy with anything, just do it. Just look into different brushes, find your own different techniques, and it will all work out well in the end. There we are. Now, don't forget the duplicating and adding some different colours. So, for example, with the webs, perhaps you want some, I don't know, pinks or purples in the webs, if you're that kind of person. So, I'm going to do that. And then move it down here. And then just rub out the edges. Now I can always come back to the webs if I want to fix something. But one thing I usually do, just to round it out, is add some more bright parts where the webs connect. Right in the centers, make any needed adjustments and we're almost ready to move on to the next part. Now another trick you can use is if you're unsatisfied with some of the background, say for example the red lines there maybe it looks too messy to you, you can adjust the intensity by clicking on the N button, and it says opacity. Just lower it and that part will slowly fade a bit. So if I'll zoom in here, you'll see what I mean. See right there? I clicked on the wrong one. There, sorry. There we are. So you see it just disappears. So if you want it to be a bit less, just be a background ambience, you can just fade it a bit. However you see fit. I'm going to fade this part. I'm also going to fade a bit of the black at the back. There we go. To whatever you want it to look like. Next, we go into luminescence to begin the portal. Now, it'll be very quick. Again, you can use your finger for this. It's really simple. So luminescence and broken lights. First layer you want will be black. So first we want a black layer. And I know it's weird, it's supposed to be bright and colourful, we're going to get to that. But if you actually look at the layer, it's got black bubbles around it, which is pretty cool. So we're going to do that now. Here we go. Just closing my Apple Pen to reconnect it. It's when your dad leaves your charger somewhere and you have to keep plugging your charger back in. So make sure nothing shuts down. Don't forget to add a layer above all the rest. Remember, if you add it underneath, it's going to be underneath everything. So add it above all the rest. Big bubbles, however you want. And draw a circle. Doesn't have to be too precise of a circle. And the hold down, and again that shape of a circle. But if you want it to be more in the middle, say it's not too much in the middle, you can move it around using the arrow. So don't worry about it. If it's too in the background and too faded, you can times 2 it, duplicate it, and fuse it together. And now it's more big. I'm going to do another layer like this. There we are. And now we can add some bright pinks, blues. I know pink, but you know, it's part of the layer in the movie, so let's just use it anyway. So again, just draw that image. Gonna add some blues. Maybe some reds. It's really whatever you want, really. So whatever colours you want your portal to be, it can be. If you don't want pinks and reds, you can use dark blues. Gonna use some more blacks over the top. And I'm going to add some, actually I'm going to add some whites. There we are. So there's my portal. I know it looks a bit like an unfinished cake, but once it's finished, it should look better. Remember, it's all about the end result. If it doesn't look good as you're going through it, don't give up. You just keep pushing until you're satisfied. Now we begin on the middle. We're getting the Spider-Man to the Spider-Man or Spider-Girl soon. Don't worry. So next we go into paint, and I tend to use Spectra as it's usually the nice color for this. So now we want the brightest one, 100%, and just a bit of yellows. We add a layer above all the webs, so right here, but under the portal. We make bigger. And we just colour that all in. Colour that all in there. Then we've got a little bit of a background, but to make it a bit cooler, why don't we add some walkways and some spider people? At least spider people can just be smudges. Remember, they're not the real main deal of the picture. course, the Apple Pencil always cuts out the time I needed. There we are. So, just add another layer. There we are. If it's not drawing on one layer, just add another layer. Should work. So I'll cut to the end of when I've done these. Remember, you're just making corridors, making walkways, doors. Now, so in order to add some light and some effect, we're almost finished this part. We just add some white, and here's a good neat trick. Now remember, this is for size, and this is for intensity. So you can like make it faded and stuff. I make it big. Add a layer over the background, under the walkways. Just add some white, some bright ones. Make it a bit smaller. Just like add a bit of a light source almost. Sometimes I make it a bit more yellowish, a bit red perhaps. And now we have our walkways. Now to add the spider people, we simply add some red small smudges across the walkways. I usually do this on a separate layer. Like that. So you use some small smudges. Remember, pinch out. You can zoom in and zoom out. You have the little people walking across the walkways there. Now, they can be different colours as well, don't forget. So, using my finger for this part, because why not? Now, why not add some... Of course, maybe put a little Miles Morales in the background as well. There. Future Spider-Man, and then we're going to put Gwen. I'm going to have to add some like pink. Yeah, there's Miles, Gwen, and 2099. Oh, in the background there, all the little smudges. Just gonna add a few more. There we go. That should be enough. What we do next is we make a small swinging Spider-Man. You can just stop there if you want, and we can move on to Spider-Man. You can just skip ahead a few 10 seconds. You know, double tap the side of the screen. Should reach after I've finished it. But if you do want to add this proper Spider-Man swinging of any kind, I'm going to add Scarlet Spider. You do this. So just draw a little body. Add a red little jacket. Add a red little head. Add some white little eyes. Add a web. Add a little spy symbol. Maybe add some shading there. There we go. So this is enough now. Then we begin on our Spider-Man himself. So like I said, for this first example, I'm going to be using a figure. So you get your picture of your figure. Now there's a simple shortcut on how to do it. You do not have to rub out the background for all the figure. That would take forever. You only have to rub out a bit of it. Because there's a neat trick that's newly been added to Apple recently. Where say you've got a picture like this, and you want to add to your picture, say for a printout, this cool monitor. But you don't have to rub all this background rock out. what you do is you take your finger and hold it. Then you can move it. Then you can tap it. Oh, sorry. There we are. And you'll see share or copy. And you could copy and then paste onto Procreate, but I've already done it from my phone because my phone takes better pictures. So I'm going to copy and paste. Then it says allow, doesn't need picture, you say allow paste. He's in the portal, and I'm going to get him out. So you move him to the top of the layers. Make him have whatever size you want. I'm going to go with this size. There we are. Then you rub out through hand with the airbrush. Remember, you can change the size of the rubber the same as the... Now, if you have any parts that are faded or fuzzy, duplicate the image and fuse. And there you go. Now everything's more stronger coloured, but it still just looks like an action figure in your bedroom. This is how I fix that. So click on Alpha Lock, I think. Is that? Yeah. Now you've got your figure. Now duplicate it twice if there's some parts that are a little faded. And then what I do, because it still looks like it's in your bedroom, is Alpha Lock. And then there's this neat trick. Alpha Lock means that whenever you draw on it, it won't go outside what's already there. So say I'm going to add some nice lighting to it using the airbrush. Just add some white with a bit of yellow. And just add some bit of that to make it fit in with the lighting a bit better. If you notice, it doesn't go outside. It stays inside the image. Now, if you want to undo that, because of course you don't want it to just be white, you click on that arrow at the bottom. Now, I'm going to add that a bit around. This way, it makes it look like it's actually coming through the portal. But what about these divides, these things that don't really fit in and make it look like a figurine? Again, airbrush, and you hold down the colour beside the divide. Hold down. And then, draw over it. There we are. Then you can make your own Spider-Man. So I'll skip to the end of when I'm finished this. Remember, if there's any colours you don't like, or any scratches, like here, again, you can do the same thing. You can just use the airbrush and rub them out. If you want the eyes to be more white or have a glowy effect, just use white on them. Then you get a little shiny effect. There we go. So I'll skip to the end of when I finish this one. If you want to, say for example, make this red more redder, duplicate it so you have your old one in case you don't like the result it has now. Drag the red, a better red, into it, and draw it up. But now you'll notice it's covering the whole thing, and we don't want that. But remember, you've got the other one there underneath it. All you need to do to reveal the old one is rub out the parts. But now you realise we've still got the red that we want on the red parts, but just not on the parts we don't want because we're rubbing those out. And it takes just a few seconds to do that. And there we go. Now I have made a huge mistake here by fusing the layers and adding this line that I'd have to otherwise colour out, but there's a trick. Simply copy that layer, and then go back, click on copy right there, tap on it, click on copy, and then go all the way back to beforehand. Don't worry about everything you've done. And go back to before you did it. And then, some of the alterations will be missing. But then, paste. Then the layer's back. But you just rub out the issue There we are. And then it's all gone. And we've got the exact same thing. Now, my picture is mostly finished now. I know it's not perfect. But again, I can always come back, fix it how I want. Doesn't really matter. It's all how you want it to be, and I quite like this one. There we are. Now, you might want to add some webs, perhaps. So I'm going to add him shooting a web out of his hand. So then we go back to the original one we used for webs. Stuka. Add layer. And do that there. That is really, really handy when you're using the color drop. Say I wanted to make this Spider-Man green, if I would ever want to do that, is when you drag it. Now, as you can see, it's only touching the head in a little smudge. That doesn't work. Well, don't lift your finger off. Drag and don't lift your finger off. But you see this threshold line across the top. Slide your finger to the end of the screen. You slide your finger along the line, and it covers more of the image. Now, as you can see, it doesn't cover much. So that's because it's got it all in different layers. But that trick is really handy. Say you wanted to cover your whole figure, but it only covered the head. Well, then, again, you just swipe to the side so it reaches 100. Now, don't forget, every time you want to do something, you just click on this little arrow at the bottom left-hand side to undo anything you don't want. You might be wondering what I did in that gap. In adding the layer, I used that same paintbrush we used earlier, and added some black to the web to give it some detail and some shooting spray out of the side to give it some more depth. I added a layer here, but what you might notice is when you do a crisp line with your paintbrush, say like that, but it's coming out of a part that's blurry, like that, and it doesn't match. Like this, for example. Some of the parts are blurry, some parts aren't. There is a handy trick. There always is. You click on this button here. Then select the layer you want to blur to look a bit more like the slightly faded part. For me, it was this layer. And then you go on Gaussian blur. Just drag it across and it blurs it. Sometimes it even just disperses it into smoke. It makes it go poof. Creating a cool effect if you want to have something explode, I guess. And that's what I also did for the webs. For the webs, I used Baskerville. There we go, this one. And I used black lines of it to draw these lines. But they were too sharp. They looked too much like, a pen. So what I did is I used the Baskerville and just blurred it so it seemed like it would dissipate into the folds that I'd drawn it on. And as you can see, I used the airbrush on other parts. Oop, little mistake there. I'll just get rid of it. Almost finished. And in a few seconds, it'll all be done. Until, of course, I do the freestyle. And there. Now you have your own Spider-Verse image. If I can get it right. Of course, no ending is ever properly finished. There we go. And now, your Spider-Verse image is complete. I hope you enjoyed this tutorial, and who knows, might make another one someday. Remember, don't forget to like and subscribe, and follow me on my Instagram for more images like this I might make in the future. And thank you for waiting until the end of the video. In that case, you had a lot of perseverance. Forgive me for the very unorganized way I did it. It's my first video after all, but thank you very much for watching, and I hope you enjoyed. Toodles. May the force be with you, and live long and prosper. Adios. Now, At the end of your photo, once you're finished, there's a better way to show your work than just showing the image. It's by clicking on the wrench and then video. Then time-lapse replay. And you can see all the way from the beginning the process of you making your entire photo. And it's very cool, but it might feel a bit long, you might think, because it's true, it probably does feel a bit long. Well, there's a way you can speed things up by clicking on Export Time-Lapse Video and click on 30 seconds. And it will load a 30-second video of your entire drawing, which I'll be putting at the end of this one. Well, and then you can save your video to your photo library and show it at your school, to your friends, and they can see how much time you put into doing something worthless. Thank you very much for joining, and I hope to see you next time.